There are three premises right now driving joyful machines and driving modality. The first one is that I don't think typing is ever going to go away. Now, that's admittedly my opinion, but people have been saying for 30, 40 years that, hey, typing is done, 5 years, 10 years, we're done with typing, and it's still here. And I think that there are three reasons why typing isn't going to go away. The first is that there are certain environments that don't really allow for it or allow for it easily. It's hard to imagine everybody walking down the street just talking into their phones or into their watches, or sitting at a cafe and everybody's talking in their phones or their watches, or an airport. And even think of like courtrooms where people have spent a year or 2 years to learn the courting technique on a stenograph. And even though it's possible that courtrooms could go to something like speech to text, which is really the main competitor here, it just doesn't seem like that's going to happen all that soon. So the second reason that I don't think typing is going anywhere is that there's just something kind of tactile about it that you don't get when you use your voice. Similar to on a computer, you could mimic drawing with pencil or oils, but that doesn't mean that pencils and oils are going away, because certainly actually touching, when I do any sort of artwork, I certainly prefer to do it on a real thing as opposed to on a computer. And what that means is that there's just that tactile kind of feeling. Now, Gutenberg, it's been several hundred years since Gutenberg invented the printing press. That didn't make handwriting go away, and neither did the typewriter, Charles Latham Sholes. And it just doesn't seem that voice to text is going to make typing go away either, just because just having that touching the thing is different. And I think people are going to want that. And that leads to the third premise, and the third premise is simply that there's always going to be people like me who, even when I could use voice, prefer to type. It's just the communication that I prefer to use for a variety of reasons. I don't know, maybe I just think it's kind of funny to hear people saying period, happy face. But now the reality is that I just prefer to use that form of communication. And I've talked to a lot of people about this, and it really seems to be about half and half. I prefer to type. My wife prefers to talk. A friend of mine, he prefers to talk, but then his wife prefers to type. So it really does seem to go 50-50, and so there's just going to be people who just prefer it as a medium. And so to me, it doesn't look like typing is about to go anywhere. Now, the second premise driving joyful machines right now and driving modality is that QWERTY is just a part of a bigger tradition. Now, every time I say QWERTY, somebody doesn't know what I'm talking about. So it's just the name given to the standard keyboard. The top 6 letters are Q, W, E, R, T, Y. Looks like a word, QWERTY. Now, Charles Latham Sholes is considered the father of the modern typewriter, and he's a very important man. But even in his time, he wasn't the only person creating a mechanism whereby you press a key and some object, like a hammer, makes a letter on the page. There were lots of people doing it before him, lots of people doing it after him. And if you really want to know, just check out the site below, because it's really interesting. Now, obviously, his system won out and beat out the competitors, including his successor, August Dvorak, who kept asking questions like, why are J and K and semicolon on the home row? Now, I have a lot to say about Sholes and Dvorak, but that's a different video. But the point is that his invention was only a part of something bigger. And at some point, people are going to finally come to devices and say, you know what? A 10-finger system on a device just doesn't make sense. And something has got to take over. We've had the typewriter 150 years, and arguably even more than that in some senses. It's been a good run, but it's time for something new. Now, the third premise driving joyful machines and driving modality right now is that modality is not the only solution. Now, we're really happy with what Google and Swipe have done for typing. Some good ideas. Google has really pushed the bounds in terms of predictive text, and that's great. And Swipe has solved a lot of the problems as well. The problem is that they keep building on a system that was meant for 10 fingers, which really only uses 8 in a lot of ways, or 8 or 9, whatever. Anyway, they keep building on a system that was meant for that, but that was not meant for devices. And so, as many ways as they solve a problem, you still have to go all over the keyboard just to type simple words like and. And to us, that's just stupid. So at Joyful Machines, we developed Modality, and even for us, it's just one of 2 or 3 or 4 other systems that we do plan on developing as well that speak to these problems, each one for a different audience and purpose. But people are realizing, man, that QWERTY keyboard, trying to make it work on a watch or a TV, or who knows what other kind of technologies are coming up. It's just not going to work on everything. And that's the simple truth. And we're not the only ones. Another group, Messagees, just reached out to us a few days ago, and we were really excited to hear from them. They are doing some really interesting things as well. Now, what I think is going to happen, there's not just going to be one system. And with systems being on screen and not mechanical, why should there be? So I think that what's going to happen, there's going to be 3 or 4 systems that are really going to rise to the top. And over time, people are going to pick their loyalties based primarily on their personalities and how they like to use the system. But none of them is going to be QWERTY. Could be that eventually one of these systems really does rise to the top. We hope it's one of ours. But all of these systems that are not QWERTY are going to be faster, more comfortable, more versatile, and really importantly, suited to the device that they were intended for. But whatever happens, it's not going to be too much longer before people finally say it is necessary that we use something new. And obviously we hope to lead that charge. Now, if we're wrong, we're wrong. It could be that people are literally going to be forcing QWERTY onto every device that they possibly can for 1,000 years. But we don't think so. If people want to be stuck in the mud and live and die by QWERTY, that's fine, but I think most of us are going to move on. So that's our 3 premises, and definitely try Modality out because we worked on it really hard over the course of a year. We're really proud of what we've done. Onward ho, Joyful Machines.